So the first one is if there's any addiction in your parents or caretakers. So there's drugs or alcohol, and the Kaiser study only names those two, which I thought was extremely limiting because I'm like, what about the other 11 addictions? So I named them. Sex, meaning you knew your parent was a cheater and you were the holder of the secret. Porn use, gambling, hoarding, spending, eating, gaming addiction, TV watching, workaholism, and social media or computer addiction. So those stand in the way of the child-parent bonds. Okay, that's the first one. Second is verbal abuse of any kind. So you could be watching mom and dad fighting a lot. They could have been screaming at you. It's also verbal put downs like change your clothes, you look fat in that kind of comments, and not hearing the words, I love you. And that one surprised me. And that was one I had. My mom never told me. And I told her at 24 years old after I had her first grandchild, like, Mom, I'm really glad you had me. I was your fourth kid. You could have stopped, and not had me. And it's really hard to have a baby. I love you. Thank you. She goes, oh, well, thanks. Okay. But you couldn't say the words, I love you. And I said, I'm going to teach this woman to say, I love you. So I finally did. And I asked her, why don't you tell your kids? She goes, well, these aren't words I heard. We grew up in the Great Depression. It was all about work and survival. So there's that generational pull of their norms were not our norms. So when I had my daughters, I said, I'm going to tell these girls all the time how much I love them. I'm proud of them. I will verbally say it. Very important messages for your children to hear these things. So that's
what I was going to ask you on that note. And I'm glad you touched on it. The lack of hearing those encouraging words, I guess, is a part of the second childhood trauma.
Yes. Not even hearing, I'm proud of you. Good job, kiddo. I know you tried your best. That's okay if you didn't win. I'm just proud of you anyway. Those kinds of reassuring words, when you can see visibly the child's upset, give them the words that they need to, it really helps build a solid, confident ego of a child. And it's sadly missed for many adults. Okay, the third one is emotional abuse and neglect. The fourth one is any physical beatings, physical abuse, rape, or molestation. And those could have happened inside or outside of the home. You could have had that perfect home life, but then, gotten beat up every day you could walk to school, right? So these are just occurrences that happen in your childhood. The next one is abandonment. And there's two types I named, fault and no fault abandonment. And this one is huge. And the ACE study did not have abandonment in their first in 2016. That's why I saw this test. I'm like, are you kidding me?
Oh yeah, they missed that one. And that one is big.
It's huge. Again, with all those kids I worked with kids from the foster care system who were abandoned over and over. Like, these come from the real stories of my kids I worked with. So abandonment, fault, no fault. So these were the types I saw. Fault, no fault abandonment would be if a parent happened to die early. No fault is also if a parent goes over to serve war. And I was in an elementary school during the Afghanistan war and Iraq, and these kids would just be flat affect, just couldn't pay attention in school, just sitting and looking straight ahead or zooming out the window. They're worried about if their mom and dad are going to come back alive. Now they're diagnosed ADHD. I said, that child is not ADHD. They're going through trauma. Because when trauma is up, cortisol is up, and memory and learning is down. And this is missed so much by our school personnel. And it's a shame because they take the SAC counselors out every time there's a budget cut that position barely exists anymore in our American schools. It should be the first person hired, for every school. And they wonder why the school shootings happen. Well, where's your mental health representative in the school?